The current state of Warzone weapon balancing is probably been the most balanced it's ever been since the launch of the game, and in Season 4 there's so many weapon options, so in this video we're going to go over what are the best weapons to use inside Warzone Season 4 from best to worst. And if you enjoy weapon stat breakdowns and overall weapon comparisons, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as we're trying to reach our goal of 10,000 subscribers, and we do want to achieve that goal very soon. And also click that link in the description down below and subscribe to our second channel. So there's currently over 100 guns in the game at the moment, and we're not going to spend too much time talking about each weapon in particular. I will break down the different tiers at the moment. So at the top we have the meta weapons, and these are the weapons that everyone's using, all the pros are using it, and you'll see them pretty much in almost every game. Then we have the almost meta weapons where they perform really well. We have the top tier weapons where they are slightly better than most of the other weapons in the game. Then we've got usable, which means you can use them, but I would probably not recommend it. Garbage is just guns that I would recommend not picking up at all. And then use fists is where melees probably would be your best option if you have this gun in your hands. So first, let's start off with the Cold War AK-47, and the Cold War AK is almost meta. Now, the reason why it's not in meta is because it does do a lot of different things well, but it doesn't do anything particularly well. So, for example, at long range, it does do okay, but it's got a bit too much recoil for that long range distance. At close range, it does do really well as well, because its TTK is pretty good, but it doesn't have the movement of SMGs. So that's why I've put it in almost meta. But like I said, you can kit this gun out many different ways. It is an amazing weapon. Then you've got the CR56 amax. Now this gun is almost meta as well. Now you can still use this at long range. It's still a very viable gun. It just gets beat out by most of the Cold War assault rifles at the moment. The AN-94 is usable. It's definitely not a top tier weapon. Then we've got the AK-47, and that's the Modern Warfare version, and again that is usable. Again, it's not going to outperform any of the other weapons that we've got up here. Next up we have the AS-VAL. Now this gun is definitely top tier. Now it's mainly top tier just for solos and duos, and maybe if you're playing Rebirth, that is where this gun will definitely outperform most others, just because it's basically a high damage SMG. I know it's in the assault rifle category, but it performs very similar to an SMG. Then we've got the AUG. Now, out of all the burst fire weapons, this is probably the best one, and that's why I will put it in top tier. I don't think it's quite as good as any of these weapons up here at long range, but it's still a really good long range weapon if you have the right attachments on there. Next, we have the FAL. Now, the reason why I'm going to put it in usable and not top tier is because it's a semi-automatic weapon, and you need to have a fast trigger finger to outperform any of these other weapons here. So it involves a lot more skill than some of these other weapons that we already have on the list. And that's why I've put it at usable, but it's still a usable weapon, and you can also have it in a burst fire mode as well if you really want to still use this gun. Then we have the Farah 83. Now this gun is the meta weapon at the moment. It's got no recoil, outputs a decent amount of damage. It's not got like a super fast insane TTK, but it has pretty much zero recoil, so that's why this is up in meta. Then we've got the FFAR. Now this is definitely a top tier gun, mainly in Rebirth. I would highly recommend using the FFAR. Other than that, I wouldn't really use it in anything outside maybe solos and duos as sniper support. The FR556 is a garbage gun. I wouldn't really recommend using this. There's so many other better options, even for burst fire rifles. The GROW is still a top tier weapon. I wouldn't say it's anywhere near the meta at the moment. It just doesn't have the fast time to kill at long range. It still has zero recoil though, so if you want a low recoil weapon, just go for the Farah, to be honest, but it's still a low recoil gun that you can use. The Groza, again, is a top tier weapon and very similar to the FFAR. I would mainly recommend this for Rebirth, especially because it performs very similar to an SMG. I would say the GROW is probably a little bit better because it doesn't have that third damage drop off at the moment, so I'm going to put it in usable. It is a fully automatic long range rifle, but like I said, if you're still looking for low recoil, there's other options that are way better. The Krig is definitely in meta as well. This gun pretty much has zero recoil too. Doesn't output quite as much damage as the Farah, but the recoil patterns are slightly different, so some people might prefer the Krig over the Farah just because the recoil. And again, the M13, again, just because it's a fully automatic rifle, I'll put it in the usable category. But again, the Krig, for example, is just a way better version of the M13. It outputs more damage and it has pretty much less recoil, so you always want to go for the Krig. The M16, sorry, is a good usable rifle. It's not quite as good as the AUG in my opinion at the moment, but it's still a usable rifle. M4A1 I will put in top tier along with the Grau. It just doesn't outperform the Cold War rifles at the moment. The only one that's close is the amax, like I mentioned before. Odin, again, it is usable. QBZ is actually quite good at close range because it does have insane strafe speeds, but the TTK is just not quite there for it to be like a sniper support or anything like that. It does have okay iron sights too, but like I said, the TTK is just not there with this weapon. The Ram 7 is almost meta. It's just a bit harder to control than some of these other weapons, so that's why I can't quite put it up in meta. But it does have a decent TTK at long range, but not quite as good as the Farah. To be honest, it's actually top tier, especially if you're using it inside solos or even duos, for example. And even in Rebirth, maybe if you push it a little bit, you could use the Scar. It does output tons of damage though, so that's why I've put it slightly higher up on the list. The XM4 again is a meta weapon. You could build this like an SMG, you could build this as sniper support, you could build this as a long range rifle, and it performs extremely well in every single one of those categories. Cold War MP5, definitely meta, one of the fastest TTKs in the game, and it's just almost a no-brainer SMG option. P90 is usable. It's a fully automatic SMG. Some people would use it. To be honest, I think compared to the other options that are available now, I'll leave it in usable for now. Bison, again, is usable just because they're fully automatic. They're just easier to use. ISO is just garbage, isn't it? ISO is just not as even good as these guns here. MP7, the MP7 is more usable than these weapons. I'm going to move these down actually. Is garbage as well. Fennec is actually quite usable too. It has a good TTK. The recoil is not quite as insane as some of the Cold War options, so I would highly recommend using that. We've got the Modern Warfare MP5. Now this gun is almost meta. It just doesn't have that Cold War movement that you get with the Cold War weapons, but it's definitely up there. It can hang definitely with some of the top weapons in the game. Uzi is pretty good. I wouldn't say it's as good as maybe the Fennec, for example, but Modern Warfare AUG is usable as well. Not one of the best SMGs in the game, but not one of the worst either. DMR, I do think the DMR is pretty top tier at the moment. If you kit it out correctly, you actually get a good medium range TTK with this gun, and it performs super well. So like I said, I do think it is a top tier weapon. Not going to beat any of the meta weapons or the almost meta weapons, but definitely usable. Type 63 is usable if you use the right attachments, but the DMR is just better. The KSP is actually a bit more usable than it was before, to be completely honest. I think they increased the damage on it slightly, so now it actually kills a little bit quicker. So it is a usable SMG. Next up, we have the Milano, and the Milano is a meta SMG at the moment. Now, it doesn't have the TTK of the Cold War MP5, for example, but it pretty much has no recoil whatsoever. So it makes one of the best sniper support weapons in the game. And on top of that, it actually makes a really good assault rifle as well. So it's actually quite versatile at long range. It kills in the same TTK as the Farah at long range. So just keep that in mind. Then we've got the LC10. The LC10 is an almost meta SMG. Great SMG for Warzone. Good sniper support. Low recoil. It just doesn't have a super fast TTK or anything like that. But like I said, the recoil is extremely manageable. PPSH is top tier, but I just feel like there's something weird about the PPSH when you use it. A lot of people do like this gun, and to be completely honest, it could go in almost meta as well, but I do feel like the Mac 10 just feels a little bit better than the PPSH, even though the TTK and the PPSH is slightly quicker. The Mac 10 just overall movement wise feels a little bit better. So moving on to the Bullfrog now, this is a gun not a lot of people are actually talking about anymore for some weird reason, but if you build this gun for hipfire, I found that it works super well inside Rebirth and inside Verdank's Battle Royale. This gun is an amazing option. It has such a large magazine. The TTK is very close to the Cold War and the Modern Warfare MP5s, and it has pretty much no recoil as well. So it's not the best sniper support SMG anymore, but it's definitely a very good hipfire SMG. The AK-74U is definitely a top tier weapon. I'd say the PPSH is slightly better than the AK-74U. Then we've got the Origin shotgun. Now it is a usable shotgun because it's semi-automatic, so I would definitely put it in usable. Street Sweeper is one of the best shotguns in the game, to be completely honest. It is usable for sure. I would only use it as ground loot. But the real best shotgun in the game right now is the Gallo 12 shotgun, and that is definitely a top tier weapon. I mean, I don't think it's quite as good as some of the SMGs in the game. It does kill a little bit quicker than most of the SMGs in the game, but it's not quite as versatile, so you can't really put it any higher up than that. Hauer shotgun is pretty bad, especially if you run auto tac sprint. Origin shotgun is pretty easy to use. Model shotgun, I would not really use this gun, to be completely honest. VLK Rogue is, I don't really know, it's a semi-automatic shotgun. It can go unusable as well. Jack 12 fully automatic shotgun can go unusable. It's at 7.2, I can't remember what the shotgun's called, but it's not good. M80 LMG, just too slow. This is one of the slowest guns in the game, and even when you stack this with like faster moving attachments, it's just still a really bad LMG. Some of the LMGs from Cold War are some of the best LMGs in the game, and this one's just not one of them. RPD, definitely usable, man. This is quite a cool ground loot gun, to be completely honest. Stoner is top tier. Stoner is definitely top tier. The recoil of the Stoner makes it a really, really good gun inside Warzone, especially if you're playing like quads or trios, for example. The Stoner is definitely a top tier gun. Holger is usable. I mean, it's a fully automatic rifle at the end of the day. Actually, I'm going to move the R90 shotgun down and the Jack 12 shotgun down, because I feel like the other shotguns are just way easier to use compared to these ones as well. The MG82, it's garbage. SA87 is definitely either top tier or usable. I would say it's top tier because it outputs a good amount of damage now. This is like the M something LMG, and it's usable again just because it's fully automatic. We've got the Bruen. The Bruen is actually, it's not quite as good as these LMGs here. Actually, I'm moving the PKM into almost meta because it is almost meta, and the Stoner is almost meta too. So the Bruen can sit right next to the SA87, and I feel like this is fair for both of these LMGs. The Finn LMG is usable. I wouldn't say it's quite as good as the Bruen. It just doesn't output quite as much damage as the Bruen. The Tundra Sniper is definitely top tier. The M82 Sniper is definitely top tier as well. I do think it's extremely usable now. The damage output on it is really good, and it's probably the best semi-automatic sniper in the entire game. Then you've got the Pellington Sniper, and I just think this gun, to be honest, I would put it all the way down here if it was up to me. Being completely honest, I've seen people do well with a sniper, so it is usable, but I don't think it's as good as some of the other options that are in the game. The AX50, definitely still usable. It's still a good sniper, man. People just don't really use it anymore. Dragunov, I'd rather use my fist. Rytek, again, I'd rather use my fist. HDR is top tier when it comes to snipers. 1911, honestly, it's just a garbage gun. Magnum, I'd rather use my fist, to be honest. The Diamati pistol, and for a single pistol, I'm actually putting this in top tier, and that is even comparing it to some of the SMGs that are currently in the game. I feel like this actually kills quicker, it feels a lot faster, and the fact that you can take ghosts with it just makes it a top tier option. So like I said, the Diamati pistol is definitely a clear top tier winner over even some of the SMGs and shotguns that are in the usable category. The Shadowhunter crossbow is terrible. The M19s, again top tier for their TTKs, and the fact that you can take ghost with it straight away, they're an amazing option. They kill just as quick as some of the shotguns that are in the game. The Renettis are just a bad Diamati pistol, so I'm going to put them down here. The X16 is just a bad pistol, so I'm putting it with the garbage right here. Snake shot pistols can be usable, so I'm going to put them in usable if you do want to run a similar thing to a shotgun, but by taking ghost at the same time. The Psychov, again, put it in usable because the movement's a bit too slow in this one. But again, akimbo or single, still a very, very usable gun. The Deagle pistols are really bad. 1911 from Modern Warfare is worse than the one from Cold War. We've got the SKS, is a pretty garbage gun as well. We've got the regular crossbow, I would not use that at all. We've got the EBR, I don't know, it's garbage. We've got the carbine, it's just a hit marker machine. I'd rather use my fist at close range. Kar 98 has got to be the best sniper in the game at the moment. There's not much that needs to be said about the Kar 98. It is the most aggressive sniper in the game, and everyone's using it right now. The SPR, again, I'm going to put it in almost meta because I don't think it's quite as good as the Kar 98, but it's definitely almost there. Next up we have the Swiss, and again with the SPR, I'm going to put it in almost meta. Now I don't think it's quite as good as the Kar 98. The ADS is just not quick enough in my opinion, but it does output a little bit more damage. So like I said, the Swiss could be a swap out option for the Kar 98. Both are good snipers. ZRG is the best long range sniper in the game, so it's definitely a meta weapon. If you want to use a sniper for the best bullet velocity and the best range, the ZRG is the best option. Next up we have the Carve rifle, and this is usable. Not quite as good as the AUG, like I said. I think that's slightly better, but it's still a usable rifle if you kit it out with the correct attachments. The AMP, I would put this in top tier. Along with the Diamati pistols and the M19s, this is one of the best weapons to take with Ghost. I would only recommend taking a single pistol though, because it does output a little bit more damage than it used to. The C58 is basically the new amax, and it has to be in the meta category. This gun just shreds it, and it has pretty much no recoil whatsoever as well. So the C58 is one of the best rifles in the game at the moment. The MG82, even though it did take a nerf, I do believe it's still the best LMG in the game at the moment. It's not quite as meta as these other weapons, but like I said, I think this is the best LMG in the game. It's got decent movement because it's Cold War, and on top of that, it has pretty much still no recoil, and it's still got one of the best TTKs out of all the LMGs in Warzone. And then lastly, we do have the nail gun. Now the nail gun is almost meta as well. The reason why it's not meta like the Cold War MP5 is because it doesn't have any attachments. So for 20 rounds in a mag, it is good for solos, duos, and maybe rebirth as well. So there we have it. We've ranked all of the Season 4 weapons from best to worst. And if I was to recommend any of the weapons to use, so anything in this top tier category right here or above is the weapons that you want to be using if you want to compete at the best in Warzone. If you want to just play around, then you can use some of the usable weapons in this category right here, but anything below this I would not recommend to be using inside Warzone. If you enjoyed this video and you learned something new, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as we're trying to reach our goal of 10,000 subscribers, and also click that link in the description down below and subscribe to our second channel, and thank you very much for watching.